Cities in China are embracing nature and creating what is known as sponge cities as a result of the worsening urban flooding. It is raining again in China. This time it's gone from mild annoyance to a major problem. In this video, we are going to learn about the future of flood control and its benefits. Sponge cities enable metropolitan areas to absorb water during periods of heavy precipitation and release it during periods of drought, as opposed to relying on the gray infrastructure of levees, pipes, dams, and channels. These ideas could be used in urban areas all around the world to reduce flooding, absorb carbon dioxide, boost plant and animal life, and create green space. Sponge cities were first studied by Kong Jian-yu, Dean of Peking University's College of Architecture, who has spent more than 20 years advocating for their implementation in China. Sponge City is a framework for managing flooding that aims to alleviate flooding, water scarcity, and water pollution. While the majority of the systems currently used in cities to prevent or lessen flooding include concrete reinforced riverbanks, drains, and pipes to keep water out, sponge cities, in short, form a sort of permeable sponge in which a large number of natural pools collect the excess water, which is then absorbed and gradually transported via soil and wetlands to large bodies of water, for example, rivers and lakes. Other components include permeable pavements, roads, and rooftop gardens in towns with many high-rise structures, which help trap and absorb rainfall and lessen the danger of floods. This method has a lot of benefits. One of them is filtering water through vegetation before it is extracted from the earth via wells, making it easier to treat and reuse. Additionally, less surface runoff results from improved water transportation to aquifers. Sponge cities also have the added advantage of generating more green spaces, improving both the quality of life for citizens and wildlife. Despite spending more than $80 million since 2016 to build greenbelts, permeable roadways, and collection wells to lessen flooding from severe rains or overflow from major rivers, the strength of last week's downpour quickly flooded the region intended to absorb it. According to Professor Chan, with this type of rain, the soil will be wet very soon. So what actually is sponge city? A sponge city is an organic approach that uses topography to hold onto water at its source, control flow, and clean water as it travels. Rainwater in urban areas is held in place while some of it evaporates and is gradually drained by waterproofing the pavement surface. To fit the city's sponge-like structure, more trees are planted, pavements are weatherproofed, and intelligent constructions are constructed. Buildings are therefore painted in bright hues to reflect more heat as opposed to absorbing it, and grass is placed on roofs to improve water absorption. How does the concept work? It makes 3 attempts to do this. The first is at the source, where a city makes an effort to confine the water by building a number of ponds, much like a sponge with a number of holes. The second method is through the flow. While meandering rivers covered in vegetation or wetlands allow water to move more slowly rather than trying to channel it quickly in straight lines. The construction of green spaces, parks, and animal habitats is a further advantage of this, as is the purification of surface runoff by plants' absorption of pollutants and nutrients. The third is the sink, where the water empties into a body of water like a lake, river, or ocean. Again, the fact that flooding is being avoided is crucial. These are being built as fresh eco-cities and offer a way to incorporate the water cycle into urban development. In traditional flood water control, it's usual practice to construct sewers or pipes to evacuate water as rapidly as possible or to reinforce riverbanks with concrete to stop overflowing. Where did the concept originate? The concept of sponge city was first proposed by Chinese researchers in 2013 and was created by Professor Kong Jian-yu. Yu is an expert in urban ecology and a landscape architect. By taking inspiration from internationally integrated urban water management programs such as sustainable drainage systems used in the UK or low-impact developments used in the US, Yu's sponge cities attempt to reduce urban flooding, water pollution, and rainfall collection. Let's talk about its diagnose: recent SCP development. According to national criteria, the SCP's goal is actually highly ambitious. The SCP infrastructure must be present in around 20% of urban areas by 2020, the latest year. Looking ahead, we anticipate that, in accordance with the CNG SCP guidelines and targets, Around 80% of metropolitan areas will need to absorb and reuse at least 70% of rainfall by the end of the 2030s. However, concerns and questions about SCV's efficacy in preventing urban flooding have been voiced. For instance, Chinese culture is fully conscious that its communication practices differ slightly from those of the West, which are typically influenced by the high regard of Confucius thought. Because there are subtle factors that affect how policymakers, developers, water engineers, and the general public perceive and support the implementation of SCP/BGI, it is important to understand mindsets, behavioral actions, reactions or responses, and communications via the influence of social media. For example, unawareness, misunderstanding, resistance, and fear to innovative BGI and SCP facilities. A positive interaction with nature. The Sponge City idea is credited to Yu Kongjian, a professor of landscape architecture at Peking University. The prior strategy for flood prevention, he said in the 2019 video for the World Economic Forum, was absolutely flawed. The construction, he claims, are really generating floods. We think we can use concrete to channelize the river. We think we can use dikes to protect the city from being flooded, and we drain away all the water, he says. As a result, the natural system, which we must rely on for a sustainable future, is actually being wiped out by those gray infrastructures. Around 12 million people were still making their regular commutes to work and school, despite meteorologists issuing red alerts when the worst downpour hit, flooding roads and a portion of the subway system, trapping 500 people for hours amid rising waters. State-run media reports that as waist-high waters rushed through the city, commuters clung to trees and lampposts. As of now, 73 people have died as a result. In addition, over 1 million people had to relocate as a result of the flooding, which also disrupted transportation and cut off electricity, water, internet, and phone connections in the city and its surroundings. Furthermore, in the area referred to as China's breadbasket, about 450 acres of crops were destroyed and thousands of pigs and other livestock were killed, adding to the destruction. Better budgets and policies. A comprehensive and ongoing effort, including strong environmental governance, is required for the Sponge City initiative. However, lax regulations and arbitrary enforcement continue to raise concerns. While less thrilling than daring ideas, improving regulations is just as important for managing water. Gains from Sponge City programs shouldn't be countered by bad environmental control, and local officials cannot simply ignore infractions when they are found. Funding is another ongoing limitation. All of the projects related to Sponge Cities have cost more than $12 billion so far. About 15 to 25% of the expenses are covered by the central government, with the remaining money being shared by municipal and private entities. Sadly, the attempt comes at the same time as the growing municipal debt crisis, which has been sparked in part by limiting financial reforms, bond rating downgrades, and uneasy bond markets. As a result, cities in China may soon experience increased borrowing costs and fewer options for debt repayment. Accelerated urbanization. The Chinese government has already chosen 16 pilot cities, and each has been awarded between 400 and 600 million yuan to pursue cutting-edge water management strategies. An additional 14 were added in 2021. According to experts, sponge cities are crucial in China because of the nation's quick and extensive urbanization, the awareness of urban and water sustainability issues, and the likelihood that anthropocentric climate change and its numerous risks and associated economic losses will raise public awareness of these issues in the future. China currently has 900 million urban residents, a five-fold growth since 1978, accounting for 64% of all 1.4 billion people living there. The country's rapid urbanization prompted the response to the rising floods in Chinese cities. So what is your opinion about China's sponge cities? Comment down below. Also, press the bell icon and subscribe to the channel to never miss a new video notification from Build Zone.